custom reporting. Okay, I'm going to be talking now about logging, which is the process of recording, unimaginative, recording an archive of events during program execution. And recording can be made through databases, files, text, console. It can be sent an email to people. Okay, it could send actually a log. Logging is notable because when we think about it, it's typically performed throughout a program or at many places in the program, and it can be performed at a variety of levels of detail. So we might be only interested in very high-level understanding about where a program is or a model is in its execution. For example, it's finished its initialization. It's now running. It's finished its running, and it's in the final phases of output of data. Or we may be interested in a lot more detail, like it's in the initialization, it's opened this database connection, it's successfully connected with the database, it's downloaded the data on the initial population state, it's closed the database connection, it has now instantiated all the agents, the first agent is starting their behavior. It could be individual level information on agent behavior. It could be very detailed level. So there's a framework called Log4j, and I have some examples of how you can use it here. What I really want to do is provide you with an update of this model, which actually shows it in use, and so you can actually see how you can integrate it with your models. And I'm going to try to do that over the coming weeks. I can't promise if I'll do it by next week. But what's really nifty about this framework is that you can use config files, unimaginative, config files to configure. Go figure. So basically, you could set up config files that set the level of desired logging, that tell where to log it to, and the format to use to log it. And what this means is, without modifying your model, you can tell it, okay, collect more information or collect less information, send this information to this place or to that place, etc. So there's a variety of types of levels of logging, levels of depth of information you can report. And they go from trace to debug to info to warn to error to fatal. So only in the most sort of, the most detailed, you have trace-related information, the least detailed, you have fatal information, only on fatal errors reported. And a given logger can be associated with multiple output streams, so it can output to several places, including email messages and so on. And it can load errors up to a server, for example, via HTTP connection. So if you build a model and you have people in Washington, D.C. running your model, when they encounter errors, it could upload the problem reports from them to you, which could allow you to better understand what was going on. So Log4j has a so-called logger class. And it's a very straightforward interface where you call these methods trace, debug, info, warn, fatal, error from different places in your code. So these are like trace LMs, like we used in our code. But the difference is that, first of all, they're marked with a level of severity. And second of all, they're not automatically printed. So which of these is printed depends on what happens to be in your configuration file. And again, without changing your model, and I will emphasize that again, without changing your model, you could change the level of detail at which it's outputting information. Just rerun it, you get more information, rerun it, get less information, not be distracted by this information when you don't need it, but when you need it, it's there for you. So this is an example of Log4j. So you're outputting warnings or information at different levels of detail. And a config file is this sort of format where basically you could tell it, okay, what this should be doing. It should output things at debug level or higher. So that's basically not the most detailed level, but the second most detailed level. and you could tell it to output it to the console, in other words, the screen that you could see in AnyLogic called console. And you could tell it the format you want it to use to output things. So I won't go through all of this, just be aware that these things are flexible. So for example, you could say, okay, I only want to see things at this level or higher of detail. And a given logger can actually output to different uses. So for example, it can go to a file, or it could go to the console. It can also be backed up, so before you overwrite the log, it makes a copy of the old log and all that sort of thing. So that's kind of nifty. I'm going to try to have an example which shows how that's used soon, although I'm not going to